If you've heard about Star Wars: The Old Republic and have been wondering about whether it's worth trying or not, this video will go through all the pros and cons about the game for new players in 2025, whether you're brand new to online gaming or if you're a seasoned MMO veteran. If you're a returning player, you'll want to check out my other video, Is SWTOR Worth Returning To, instead. Star Wars: The Old Republic is an online game based around the Star Wars universe, but set thousands of years in the past. In the game, you can take on the role of a Jedi, a Sith, or even a bounty hunter or smuggler. The big difference between Star Wars: The Old Republic and most other Star Wars games is that you can play online with other people. It's a massive, multiplayer online role-playing game. While you're exploring the harsh deserts of Tatooine or going through your trials on the Jedi homeworld of Tython, you'll run into other players, each with their own highly customizable character. You also have the option of participating in exciting group missions, including 4-person flashpoints, 8-man operations, player versus player matches, or even just have a friend or two come along with you on your main story quests. In many cutscenes, you'll be able to see both you and your friends together in a living movie, where you get to hear and see your character and make decisions live. If you prefer playing alone, Star Wars: The Old Republic's main class stories are ideal for solo players, and the later expansion stories are specifically built with solo players in mind. If you're a new player who's trying to decide if the game is worth trying out, let's first go over the cost of the game. Good news, it's actually free. To download and play an expansive free demo of the game's first 60 levels and original classic story can be done without spending a single dime. New players who have never spent money on the game are referred to as free-to-play players, and although they have convenience restrictions, all 8 class stories can easily be accessed on a free-to-play account, and the original 8 class storylines are considered some of the best story content in the game. So, if you're concerned about spending money on a game you might not like, SWTOR might be perfect for you to try out, as you don't have to invest any money into the game until you've really figured out if you like it or not. Personally, I've played over 60 hours on my free-to-play account, and while there are some restrictions, I didn't find that they hindered my enjoyment of playing the storylines. They were mostly convenience restrictions, like not being able to wear the few rare purple items I came across, but I was still able to run all the quests and stories just fine. Free-to-play players have access to all the game's base stories, plus the first 2 expansions for free, including the Rise of the Hutt Cartel and the Shadow of Revan expansions. While some of the newer features are restricted to subscribers, others are hybrid and you can take advantage of parts of them without having to subscribe. For example, the well-liked Galactic Seasons system is available to everyone, but only subscribers can claim the second half of the rewards. If you're worried about breaking the piggy bank down the line with all the expansions that are out, I've also got great news for you. First off, the first 2 expansions are, I'll say it again, completely free. You can then unlock all the current and past expansions simply by subscribing for just 1 month at about $15 USD. You no longer need to buy each expansion individually. Awesome! That means when you decide to subscribe, you'll get all 4 other expansions for only $15 and you'll get them permanently. You'll be able to continue playing those stories even if you unsubscribe the next month. Currently, there's 6 expansions: Rise of the Hutt Cartel, Shadow of Revan, Knights of the Fallen Empire, Knights of the Eternal Throne, Onslaught, and the most recent expansion, Legacy of the Sith. Last year, the developers seemed to have taken a step back from making expansions and instead invested in solid, regular updates and graphical, technical, and system upgrades to the game, including a graphics rehaul, world quests, and adding a Mac computer launcher. This is pretty great for new players because they get access to these types of updates and upgrades without having to subscribe. New players who have played other online MMOs will be pleasantly surprised about the interactive cutscenes in Star Wars: The Old Republic. The cutscenes really are like being in your own movie, and even better, a movie where you get to make decisions. Every cutscene is fully voiced and animated, and the main class stories are exceptionally good. There's also 8 different classes to choose from, so if you choose to play a Sith Inquisitor, you're going to have a drastically different story than someone playing a Republic Trooper. Your class decides your combat style, your weapon, and your class storyline. You can play a Sith Inquisitor, a Jedi Knight, an Imperial Agent, a Smuggler, a Sith Warrior, a Trooper, a Jedi Consular, or a Bounty Hunter. Many players wind up making multiple characters to see these different stories. The developers have actually been putting more attention into these cutscenes since the launch of the game, and there's been lighting and shadow upgrades, texture upgrades, and both scenery and character graphical modernization updates over the last year, bringing it more in line visually with modern games. For a game that launched in 2011, it's looking really nice, and the in-game cutscenes are drastically improved compared to the launch of the game. They have been releasing a few upgrades per update, so we're likely to see even more in 2025. There have also been some major improvements to leveling since the launch of the game. When the game first came out, players were required to do almost every quest to gain XP so they could be at the appropriate level for the next area. This often included doing fetch quests and side quests alongside the main story just to keep up. Now, these type of side quests are actually hidden from players by default. Instead, players are encouraged to do their main class storyline and the main planet storylines, which should give most players enough XP to progress without having to do any side quests. These two types of main quests are marked with a giant purple icon to make them easier to distinguish from the optional exploratory quests. The leveling process in general is pretty smooth. Jump in, follow the purple quests, and explore the rest of the game when you're feeling ready. Players new to MMO games may be pleased to know that the game's base difficulty is incredibly easy. One of the main focuses of the game is the story, and the developers have made changes to the game to make it more accessible even to the newest of players. Experienced gamers who are looking for a highly challenging experience from level 1 onwards will likely be disappointed with the combat, and will only enjoy the beginning part of the game if they enjoy the story and the universe. The good news is that there are more challenging modes available for players at later levels who are looking for that harder content. Players who reach the later expansions at level 60 and beyond have the option to play 2 of the expansions in Story Mode, Veteran Mode, and the very difficult Master Mode. If you're willing to group up, there's also Veteran Mode and Master Mode operations and flashpoints that offer team-based challenging fights that will really keep you on your toes. If you enjoy group content, although there are not many world-first raiding groups left, progression and endgame raiding is alive and well in this game. Because SWTOR is a massive multiplayer game, players often ask how good the game is for a solo player. Although the game will never be as good as a game designed specifically with solo play in mind, like Knights of the Old Republic, when it comes to online games, it's probably the most solo-friendly game that exists. The entire class storyline is designed with a single player in mind, and the developers have added more options to solo content over the years. All the story expansions also offer story content catered towards solo players. Don't believe me? I've created a massive story order guide specifically for solo players. I have no idea how long an average solo story campaign might take you, but at the time of making this video, if I've counted right, a single character can visit 34 planets, play 20 solo flashpoints, and enjoy 6 expansion storylines. Players who are willing to try group content will unlock an additional 11 group-only flashpoints and 12 8-man operations once you reach Endgame. I've also seen players ask if it's important to know a lot about the Star Wars universe, or if you need to have seen the movies before playing. I feel I can pretty confidently say no. The game starts you off as an apprentice in the various classes, and your story mentors will teach you more about the world around you as you play. In general, the story is set in a fairly generic sci-fi universe that follows many of the same rules as our world does, with the additions of space travel and sentient aliens. Add in the more fantasy-based Jedi and Sith magic, Force users, and you've got the idea of the Star Wars universe. The big things to know about this game is that it's set over 3,000 years before the Star Wars movies take place, so you likely won't see your references to Darth Vader or Ahsoka kicking around. I believe anyone who enjoys sci-fi based games or games that have a huge established lore base would enjoy Star Wars: The Old Republic. Instead of having many smaller servers, SWTOR now has 5 mega servers, while some servers were very quiet before the merge. All 3 English servers now have an okay population. The merge allowed more players to use the group finder and group up together, and between that and the addition of Galactic Seasons, it seems to have worked very successfully in allowing more players to play together. While it's clear from the numbers that SWTOR is not nearly as popular as it was way back in the day when it launched, I haven't had any problems getting into randomized groups for flashpoints in PvP, and I see people running operations frequently in chat, though those mostly happen within guilds. Important note for 2025. There are 2 North American servers, Starforge and Satele Shan. In past years, Starforge's server was slightly larger than Satele Shan, but there wasn't a huge discrepancy. However, over the years since that server merge, the 2 North American servers have really been diverging, and the Starforge server is a lot more active. While I don't have exact numbers for you, I would recommend to pick the Starforge server to play on if you're starting for the first time. Now let's talk about update frequency. Last year's update cadence was about the same as the previous year, but each of the larger updates contained a surprising variety of content and graphical, technical, and system upgrades to the game. And it seems like the SWTOR team has settled into an update cadence that works well for their development team compared to some previous years. The most recent update that came out before this video was update 7.6, which brought 100 new quests to the game in the form of world quests called Dynamic Encounters, a new tier of crafted augments for gear, mounts that can hold your companion and your pet, art and graphic improvements on Korban, Tython, Hoth, and Ilum, PvP Season 7, a large batch of bug fixes, and shortly after, the Mac launcher was made available. That was all part of one update. They've also been focusing on long-term changes in the game's economy, and over the course of the last year or so have brought the inflation down to manageable levels through different changes over the course of multiple updates. For 2025, I expect to see similarly beefy updates a few times a year, which often include multiple things even new players can enjoy and take advantage of. One of the nice things about the game being focused on story is that there's never a bad time to jump into the game. I often get asked if it's too late to join. None of the older storylines are removed or made irrelevant, so you can start at level 1 and play the story at your own pace. No matter how many expansions have come out since you started, it's never too late to jump into the game. New players to the game will have over 13 years worth of content to explore and enjoy. The base 8 storylines alone will likely be well over 200 hours plus of gameplay for the average player before they even subscribe. At the time of making this video, there is currently a video game voice actor strike, which seems to have affected the last story update, delaying it for a future time. This is something that will affect almost all big studio games in 2025 that have story, and will likely have to wait until negotiations are resolved before the game's voice actors can return for newer content. Like I said though, as a newer player, you don't have to worry much about that because you have so much stuff to enjoy before you even get to the newest content. Another question players often ask is if it's too late to catch up with the more technical side of things like gearing or reaching level 80. Every couple of years, the entire gearing system of the game is reset and all players have to start fresh at endgame. This reset makes it really easy for players who haven't been playing for 10 years to jump in. You don't have to catch up with 10 plus years of gearing. The gear system was retooled multiple times last year, making it easier and easier for new players to get the best gear in the game, even if they're fresh to max level. One of the other big concerns I've seen about the game is the lack of endgame content. At the launch of the game, once you had reached max level, there was very little else to do in the game, and this lack of endgame content really hurt the game's population and its reputation. It's been 13 years since the game's launch though, and a huge amount of content has been added since then. To give you some context, the game launched with a single 8-person group operation, and now the game has 12. These operations are in addition to many other types of content that now exists, including 6 single boss operation instances, monthly events like the new Dantooine Farm event, Swoop event, and Rackwell event, over 40 4-man flashpoints, many of which have solo options available, 15 player versus player maps, 4 Galactic Starfighter player versus player maps, a solo tournament style fight called the Eternal Championship, repeatable heroics on almost every planet, 13 daily areas that didn't exist when the game launched, and the new Dynamic Encounter system. So if you're worried about starting the game and running out of things to do when you reach max level, I say good luck, buddy, because even I haven't done every single thing available at Endgame, and I've been playing since the launch of the game. Now let's go over who might like or dislike this game. If you're a new player looking for great MMO story content, I think you'll love the game. If you love Star Wars, I think you'll love the game. If you enjoy Knights of the Old Republic, lower your expectations a bit, and I think you'll enjoy this game. But it isn't Knights of the Old Republic 3. If you're looking for a sci-fi MMO, I would recommend this game. If you like the Disney Plus Star Wars TV shows like The Mandalorian, Ahsoka, Andor, and are looking for more expanded and adventurous lore like that, I think you'll love The Old Republic. If you're looking for a game to play with a friend or significant other, I have personally enjoyed playing this game one-on-one with both friends and family. The game is especially good for long-distance play. Unfortunately, there's no couch co-op mode. If you're looking for a game with fun group activities, I would recommend this game's flashpoints and operations as being really fun, but I'd point out that the story and leveling content leans more towards solo players. If you're looking for top-notch challenging content, I would not recommend this game. While positioning yourself can be important, you cannot manually dodge or evade attacks. The combat is similar to older styles of MMORPGs like World of Warcraft and may feel a bit slower than newer style MMORPGs like Elder Scrolls Online, and won't be anything like first-person shooters or games in the Battle Royale style. If you're looking for hyper-realistic, next-generation graphics, for example, something like Jedi Survivor, I would not recommend this game, but with the graphical improvements, the game does look great compared to its previous graphics, and I'd recommend to check out some more recent videos or live streams of the game by players playing the ultra graphic settings to see if you might like it. For example, the old launch trailers look nothing like the game does now. If you're looking for perfectly balanced, bug-free PvP experiences, I wouldn't recommend this game. With that said, many of my friends do enjoy both the casual PvP in the game, and the developers have kept up well with the PvP seasons. If you're looking for a game that uses cutting-edge technology, I would not recommend this game. Due to rushing the launch of the game is stuck with an older engine and is not well optimized as it could be, especially compared to newer online games. We have, however, been seeing updates over time, but the game is still hindered somewhat by using older technology. If you're looking for a game that is 100% free to play, I will warn you that you may experience frustrations and will hit a paywall at around level 60 and at the end of the free expansions. But as I mentioned, I really enjoy playing the class storyline on my free account, and if I decide to play the other 8 class storylines, I could easily clock over 200 hours in the game without spending a dime. If you have at least $15 to spend, you can unlock all the expansions permanently, even if you unsubscribe the next month. If you're looking for a game where you can really customize your character, the game is great for that. You can have the looks of one armor while using the stats of another. Mix and match armor sets, dye armor, and choose from hundreds of color crystals for your lightsaber or blaster. It's very rare to see 2 identical characters. If you're looking for a game you can really invest into, even beyond the huge amounts of story and quests that are available that I've already talked about, the game also has really extensive player housing that you can decorate, in-depth crafting, guilds, roleplay, and lots of other things that exist outside of the game's main spheres of play. Because there are so many facets to the game, if you get bored of one, you can always check out another. If you're looking for a game where you can really connect with your character, SWTOR is great for that. When you combine its customization options with the movie-like cutscenes and the graphical upgrades, and the ability to make long-lasting character choices, many players feel very connected to their in-game characters. If you're a new player trying to decide if you should try the game or not, I hope by now I've covered enough to help you decide. The easiest way to get the game is to find it on Steam, or go to SWTOR.com/download and it will start downloading immediately. In 2025, the average download time is only about 3 hours. If you're still wondering about specific aspects of the game, like classes or story, I've created dozens of videos ranging on every topic of the game, and if you plan on playing, I highly suggest checking out my playlist called The Academy. Good luck in the universe of Star Wars: The Old Republic, and may the Force be with you.